what you might think about me or what I may look like I am is not who I actually am. Like everybody is vulnerable. Everybody has those moments of not feeling confident. And a podcast certainly shows you that because we've had stumbles, we've had missteps, we've done things wrong. We've done a lot of things really right. And we've had a lot of things that have happened amazing, but you have to also have perspective to appreciate the things that don't go to plan or well, to understand the things that do.
Welcome back to the Bombshell Business Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Hurdle, and we are still in the vacation rental, short-term rental takeover week of the Bombshell Business Podcast, where I get to introduce you to some of my friends and new friends in the vacation rental industry, not to teach you the vacation rental how-to 101, but to just kind of pull back the curtain on the personalities and the owners and the leaders so that you can learn from some of the best people in business America and beyond. I'm telling you, these people are great. And I just needed an excuse to interview all of them. So releasing an episode a week between the Book Direct conference in Miami and the VRMA conference in Las Vegas. So let me tell you about today's guest. Alex Husner is the co-host of the podcast, Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals with Annie Holcomb. In well under a year, they were named among the top 30 hospitality podcasts by the Global Hospitality Institute and are in the top 10 of all podcast genres globally. She is the chair of the board of directors of the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce and the CVB, where she has served on the board since 2013 and has a passion for developing strategies that drive sales overnight and brands over time, connecting all aspects of digital, social media, and traditional marketing to keep the business she serves at the forefront of highly competitive markets. Alex recently announced her transition from Chief Marketing Officer for Condo World, where she served since 2009, leading the strategic business development and marketing efforts that grew the company from 150 units to 500, handling sales and marketing for another 5,000 properties across the Southeast, to her new role, CMO of Casago, which offers vacation rental homes in more than 38 cities in a dozen communities across U.S. and Mexico. Alex will lead Casago's East Coast expansion while growing the visibility and reach of the Casago brand within the global vacation rental industry through strategic branding and marketing initiatives. Now, after that bio, if you don't believe she can get that done,
That's a
I can't help you.
mouthful.
But for the case of this episode, I want you to know she is a bad mama jamma, boss, big friend of mine, and I cannot wait to share her story just of the last year with you. But there's more meat than even that. Welcome to the show, my girl, Alex.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, what an introduction. And I'm sorry I had to go through all that. It is a mouthful, but
no,
gosh,
I picked the pieces I wanted to share. I want people to know what chops you have.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And what an honor. All those things it makes me very happy. And I'm so excited to be here today. This year has been an unbelievable year, and you've been part of it in such unique ways. And like you've played parts in it in ways and times that were so pivotal in pushing me and in pushing Annie, my podcast partner, to where we are. So this is another symbolic part of this year that really, I mean, it's incredible. So thank you for being here. Can't wait, obviously, to spend time with you and chat.
Yeah, well, so I've already interviewed Annie, and we talked about her journey of the past year and some of the internal shifts and what that has meant externally. And you know, gosh, her year has been, you guys are just on fire. And, you know, I was tearing up pre-show when we were just kind of talking, and it's not like I haven't talked to you this week. So it was just like so overwhelming, exactly. Even just to like know these things. So let's start unpacking it for our listeners, because, you know, I think, you know, the definition of a bombshell is a bold, brave, unwaveringly confident woman, with a little asterisk that's like, oh no, we're not confident all the time. That's what we aspire to. And the difference between bombshell and somebody else is we just get back up. And that's what I've watched you do.
Yeah.
So in this kind of like Alex makeover before and after podcast, like there's three different kind of areas that have significantly shifted for you. But before you even kind of get into those specific things, can you just like kind of just high level talk about your personal growth over the past year?
Whew, boy, it has been an incredible year. And honestly, I just ended the career at Condo World, which was 13 years. And I will say those 13 years were amazing. But this past year has really just been, it's like putting, fuel to the fire. I mean, like this has been absolutely crazy how much growth that I've had personally, professionally, and not intentionally, I would say, or not even deliberately. And it's so amazing looking back now, connecting the dots on why some things happened, why some things didn't happen. And you don't know that in the moment, but it's been a great year. And I think the podcast has played so much into that one, it gave Annie and I both the confidence to just to grow in our own veil. I mean, like we really have both expanded so much in this past year, but having these conversations with these leaders within our industry and even outside of the industry, we talk about business and leadership and just travel and tourism in general. Having those conversations with these types of people on a regular basis, it grows your awareness of just the business culture and leadership and just how much is out there. And I think you can sit inside the walls of a business or an office for a long time, but until you get out in the world, you don't know what you're missing.
That's
And I
right.
think we have just seen so much in this past year that we didn't even know was possible. And that's 100% credit to the guests that we've had on the show and the opportunities that the show has opened up to us. But it started with putting ourselves out there. And that's a very, for Annie and I, it was a vulnerable type of a thing to do. And for me personally, I didn't ever like even hearing myself on a voicemail prior to having a podcast.
Yeah, you got to get over that quick.
Yeah. So it's like to listen to yourself. Oh my God. Like it's like nails on a chalkboard the first few times because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said it that way. But what I've learned is that, and this is 100% part of our word of the year, one of our Annie and I's words of the year is that you need to be authentic. And when you're authentic, the right people will find you and the wrong people will leave, right? I mean, like the people, if you're true to yourself and you show up who you want to be, and you're not saying that you're perfect, and you're admitting that, and even telling what you might think about me or what I may look like I am is not who I actually am. Like everybody is vulnerable. Everybody has those moments of not feeling confident. And a podcast certainly shows you that because we've had stumbles, we've had missteps, we've done things wrong. We've done a lot of things really right. And we've had a lot of things that have happened amazing, but you have to also have perspective to appreciate the things that don't go to plan or well, to understand the things that do. And
Right.
I mean,
That
your
contrast.
episode, yeah. I mean, Amber, you were on our show for episode 2, which is crazy that that was like 53 episodes ago now. And we could not, because not your fault, we could not figure out how to record 3 people. And like I was traveling. And so we kept trying to record in places that the service wasn't good. And we were so embarrassed that we kept messing it up that like we had to record with you 3 times to finally get it right. And if it wasn't anybody but you that had helped us with that, we probably wouldn't have ever had a guest on the show again because it would have been so embarrassing because most other people would be like, I can't do this again. I don't have time. But you saw in us these women, they need my help. They're onto something big. I believe in their vision, but I know that they need some hand holding. And you got us to that point. And then after that, it was like,
Game on.
Like, we needed that little push, and you've been that way for both of us this whole past year. So 100% just grateful for you, and what a blessing to have met you.
Oh, same. And I was just going to say, like, I think one of my favorite parts of podcasting, and I've been doing it a long time, is all the cool people that you get to meet. Like, how would you get to meet all these people if they weren't like interested on being on your show? And also podcast guesting, like I would never have you and Annie in my life if I wasn't on your podcast. You wouldn't be here right now if, like it was just like the podcast thing is just such a great, you said it well, like get out into the world. Well, the world is really big.
Yeah.
And a podcast is a very specific way to connect and share ideas and really find people who align with your personal values and the way that you look at business and share that with the world. So since we're on the topic of podcasts, like maybe that's the first transformation, because and Annie and I talked about this, but just in case somebody hasn't listened to that episode yet, at VRMA last year, so the Vacation Rental Management Association's International Conference, you and Annie committed to and announced that you were going to start this podcast.
Yeah.
And so what's happening this year at VRMA?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we put that graphic out there. We said, went by one of our favorite lines or one of my favorite lines, commit first, figure it out later. Like if you put it out there, you have to do it now, right? Because I mean, like that, it gives you that accountability. And I think accountability is a big thing. So we put it out there and then we had to figure out how to do it. We knew nothing about doing any of it. Obviously we stumbled with you, thank gosh it was with you, but yes, a year later we are now returning to that exact same conference and hosting the very first ever red carpet event for vacation rentals. This is a premiere of the Homerunners docu-series that details. The first episode is Steve Milo, V-Trips. Second episode is Casago, and it's so cool. Like it shows the world what they need to know about vacation rentals and how much of a tough business it is. And I think since we have, since COVID, it seems like vacation rentals are an easy thing and that this is just this passive income. But this show is going to show everybody, to the world, how it's truly a difficult business. It's a very rewarding business and it's a business that you can do very well with, but you have to be committed to it. But for us to be there and representing that message means so much. And part of the reason it means so much to me personally, and when I was hired at Condo World 13 years ago, Roy hired me. He was a pioneer. That was the CEO who passed away a year ago. He hired me for the purpose of creating a website that would promote professionally managed vacation rentals. This was not Condo World. This was another website. That was the first reason I was hired for. That would define the difference between why you rent from professionally managed company versus an individual owner, and what would happen if you rented a unit from a homeowner in Chillicothe, Ohio, and they can't get down here when the toilet's broken or the air conditioning doesn't work or whatever issue there is. You need to rent with a local manager that has a local presence in that market that can help you with true hospitality. And this is 2008. Airbnb was not even a thing. VRBO was starting to come into play, but he saw that threat of what was happening to the industry, not only to the companies to potentially lose homeowners, but also what was going to happen to the guest experience. And everything that he said happened. And now it's a leveling off at this point. I mean, we use those channels as property managers, we work with them, but there are still issues. And to me, it's unbelievable that this has come so full circle, that a lot of what we're talking about now, and episode 1, Steve Milo, he was hashtag we are not Airbnb. That was a big thing that he talked about. Like it is now the time for the American public to understand what professional managed vacation rentals are. We are not an Airbnb. And this is nothing against Airbnb, but we need to define now who we are as a brand. Like we are not Airbnb was the rallying cry that needed to get everybody together, and everybody's behind it of, yes, we agree. But now it's time to say, okay, let's take a deep dive and figure out who we are. So all of those things that just give such a different level of purpose to this journey. It's not just about Annie and I trying to be superstars on the red carpet. This is a very purposeful journey that I feel like Roy started me on 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And I wish he could see this, but I know he can.
Oh, he totally can. And I think that's another thing to talk about, is just before this whole thing started, like your whole world started amplifying, I guess is the right word. You lost your mentor.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It was really tough. Yeah. And it was shocking. I mean, he was 86 when he passed, and people are like, I can't believe you're shocked. He's old, but he was in good shape. I mean, he beat cancer 3 times in his lifetime. He beat COVID and was on a ventilator a year earlier at 85 years old, and like beat that. And it was, I mean, he passed very peacefully. It was just essentially it was a cardiac issue that it was quick. But nobody knew this was coming. And so I always felt like he would be around forever. and to be honest. And I felt if he was ever not going to be with us, that it would be something that he was ill and we would be prepared for, and we'd have that time to say goodbye. So that was tough, but it's the things that have happened since he passed, I feel like are him showing me, sorry, I guess,
Okay.
how much he prepared me for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty in it, is that, he mentored you, he guided you, and now you have the opportunity to like fly out of the nest. Not that we don't wish he was still here, but since
Right.
he's not, like, you've flown out of the nest and you're like, okay, look, Roy, this is nothing that you taught me was lost on me. And, I
Absolutely.
lost my mentor
Yeah.
too, Johnny
Yeah.
Keel.
Yeah.
And that was like, I mean, I didn't do anything without talking to him about it. I didn't do anything without being like, what do you think? Or,
Yeah.
if I got a raise, I'd call him and tell him, like, he
Everything.
knew
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to not have him, it was, you're a little bit in the wilderness for a little bit.
It is. And there's so many things that have happened in the past year that it's like, I so wish I could tell him about. But I mean, I know he sees them, but it's just, it's been an interesting year. And I, I'm very glad he knew, at least before he passed, that two important things that happened. That one, I had told him Annie and I were starting a podcast, but this was back when it was definitely, the idea was very much in its infancy. Um, it, he knew, but like I didn't have any details. I showed him the logo, but like he didn't. I didn't know even what it was. Like I showed it to him, but he also knew that I was rising into the chair of the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
which that's a very, very big role in our community. Our chamber our CVB is the fourth largest in the country, under Vegas, New York, Orlando. I mean, just huge in terms of the budget that we manage and the impact that it has on tourism for our area. So that was something for him that was so prideful, to know that he got me involved with the chamber years and years ago. And I didn't know anybody at that time. And like, he gave me that confidence to start trying to be able to meander my way through and start, talking during meetings, when the early years I never wanted to raise my hand and say anything. And just having him to give me that confidence was huge over the years.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, because, my average listener doesn't know who you are, but in the industry, if somebody doesn't know who you are at this point, like, they're hiding underneath a rock. But, I do think that people just automatically assume that you're like full of confidence and like, you're unshakable.
Yeah.
And, as somebody who's also known for confidence, like, cut us some slack. We're humans, right? Like, so talk to that a little bit about, like,
Yeah.
let's just even talking about when you met Annie, because
Mhm.
Annie talked about that yesterday and we got her hot take on it. I want to know your take on that whole experience.
Of when we met.
When you met. Yeah. When you
Okay.
walked into
Yeah.
that
So
room.
yeah, we met. We went. This was my actually the first conference that I went to by myself, without anybody else from the company going. So like flying there by myself, getting a rental car by myself, like doing all the things, and excited but nervous. And also going into a conference where I only knew a couple people that were going to be there. So, and this was like a very kind of cliquey kind of conference group that they all went to multiple things a year. And I was the new kid. It's like walking into high school on the first day all over again in business. But I think I project myself as a confident person, and I am a confident person. I'm not saying I'm not confident, but when you're in those situations, everybody feels a little bit of uneasiness, because that's just how it is. But I walked in, and her perception of me was so different than my perception of what happened there, that I didn't know anybody. It was the breakfast, and I saw her sitting and sat down next to her, and I just thought she looked so nice and welcoming, and she waved me over. And I think we kind of knew of each other. So it was more than anybody else I knew in the room, that we at least somewhat, knew each other. But sat down, had breakfast, and just immediately started, chatty Cathy's just talking like crazy, and so much in common, and just really started. That was the start of the friendship. And it's amazing looking back on that's where it began. And you never know where you're going to meet somebody and where it's going to lead to, but that's also the exciting part of life.
But you also both had like an open heart to each other. Like, you have to be
Yeah.
open in order to
Yeah.
receive. Like, that's
Yeah.
kind of just how it works. So
Yeah.
Annie might have had some preconceived notions about you and, like, oh, she's so fabulous. And like, I mean, I'm kind of scared of her, but I also kind of want to know her. And then you were like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm walking into the room scared. She looks really nice. Maybe she'll take me.
Yeah.
Like you guys, like kind of both
We'll
like
be the
we're
bestest of friends
that's
forever.
right. It's so great. And I love that in this past year that you've had each other to just push each other and pull each other and be there for each other and talk through things,
Yeah.
because that's just even just talking about the podcast alone, to have another person, like, this is hard. This is not, podcasting is not easy. I mean, it was not hard for
Huh.
me as a podcaster
Right.
to be fine with recording 3 times with you, because I'm like, this isn't something you just like, oh, let me figure it out real quick. Like, it's
Right.
work,
Yeah.
and it takes work, and people think it's like, you just show up and then it magically goes out on air, and there's so many steps and so many technical things that could go
Yeah.
wrong. And anyways, I love your friendship.
There's so much to it, but at the same time too, there's so much benefit. Like, I mean,
Oh,
of all the struggles, and believe me, there's been not just struggles, but just the time commitment of it and how much she and I have put into this. Like, it can be mentally draining. It can be, physically draining too, but it's so worth it. And what we're seeing right now in both of the changes in our lives and where our careers are going now is just, that is the proof of, when you put yourself out there, you're going to find more people that want to be around you, the right people that want to be around you and want to take you to another level. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm just extremely grateful, and to have her by my side, she's just a wonderful, amazing human being and just
yes.
genuine friend that just
Yeah.
cares about everybody, but certainly cares a lot about me, and I appreciate her so much.
Yeah. Totally agree with that sentiment. Definitely on the Annie Holcomb fan club. Um,
Yeah.
so
All three of us have the same initials too.
that's it. Yeah.
That's kind of the funny thing too. But the aha moment, that was our Annie's first episode was the aha moment. And then you were episode 2. And we're like, hold on, it's Alex and Annie and Amber. And it's all H last names. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, we're on to something. This is a sign.
AH cubed. That's us.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first transition was like, we had an idea and we announced, and now we're covering the first red carpet event. And, I'm really excited about that. I know Matt Landau has put so much time and effort into Homerunners. So that's going to be such a great event. And then there is a transition of, and what a huge leap, both, I mean, I would imagine, like, emotionally, and then also you're going from a local slash regional market for your job as CMO to now, I mean, technically it's international. I know it's mostly US, but you're at a national level now. So, that's another big shift. So can you talk me through that? And, just, I know, like, you met Casago at another event, and I mean, just things happen. So
I mean, a lot of it just, timing. And I think a lot of it stems from things that happened indirectly from the podcast. But I met Ryan Dame at the GNEX conference in Las Vegas back in February, that Amy Highnote had asked us and Lino Maldonado and Scott Bunce and one other gentleman to be on a panel about how vacation ownership, timeshare kind of clubs can work with vacation rentals. And Ryan was on that panel with me, and it was a very interesting panel. And we all went to dinner that night and sat next to him, had a great conversation. And I remember him saying to me that night, you need to meet Steve. And I was like, who's Steve? He's my partner. He's the owner, primary owner of Casago, or founder of Casago. And I said, okay, well, I mean, introduce me. I don't know where I'm going to find him, but you got to introduce me. And he said, okay, I will. Next time we're at an event together, I'll introduce you. And it ended up being, it was several months later that he texted me and said, yeah, I really would like to just get on a call and introduce you to Steve. And so we chatted then, and it was really just introduction. And I got such a great feeling from it. And I told him I'm not really looking to move right now or anything like that, but very nice to meet you. And we just continued just casually talking over the months. And the opportunity came at a great time, that they need somebody that I've done this for Condo World, and like what they need done is exactly what I did to Condo World. That when I started with Condo World, they were 22 years in business, and remarkably, Casago is 22 years in business as well. It's a weird coincidence. Yeah. I'm like mind blown. But when I met Condo World, they were at the same point that they were doing really well. I mean, everything was doing great. I mean, like they had a great business, they had great leadership, they were so well respected by their homeowners and guests, and that's certainly the case with Casago. And but they wanted to get to that next level, and I think that's where Casago is now. That there's they've done so many things so well, and I can't wait to continue to learn more about it. But now is when you really put the gasoline there to how we amplify that brand and how we start getting everybody to know Casago. I mean, I did presentation yesterday in our local market here about it was about personal branding, but and how that helps your company that you work for and the visibility of them. And I'm on the East Coast. There's a location of Casago in West Virginia and in St. Augustine, but besides that, East Coast is there are not any. And I asked everybody in the room if they'd heard of them, and the two different sessions, 100 people in each, and nobody knew of them. And I said, well, that's why they hired me.
Yeah.
So, at least 200 people are going to go home today that did not know about Casago that know about them now. And that's just the beginning. So
Yeah.
I'm so very excited to grow with this company. I just am enthralled by their vision, their culture, everything that they've done to this point is just it makes me so excited to start a new journey, which is really tough. I mean, like starting a new journey if you've been there somewhere for 13 years, you've got to be pretty sure that where you're going is going to be the right choice, and that's that it would not take something small or that I was unsure about to make this decision. So
Yeah. Well, I don't know a ton about Costago. I know enough, but the one consistent thing that I've heard about them, and obviously this is what people would tell me considering what I do, but is that they have a
yeah,
great culture, that they have it right
yeah,
internally. And so for
yeah,
me, like as your friend, I'm like, okay. Like as
yeah.
long as
So
you're going to a
they
good culture, that's awesome.
right.
Right.
They have this is if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I've got this little book here that this is their orange standard book that this is their guiding principles of the business. And they have meetings and where they'll read a page at each meeting a week, and somebody gets to share an example of like how a guest or an owner or a or a staff person, I guess, lived up to what that value was. And I remember Steve telling me that the first time I talked to him, I was like, that is so cool. Like I
How it
love stuff
should
like that.
be. Like
Yeah. I'm like,
that's
oh my gosh, that just makes my heart melt. So just excited to learn more about that and just know that it's more than just about making money. It's about being part of a company and fulfillment and just being hospitable hosts and providing guests and owners with an amazing product and company.
yeah. And I want to just kind of, what is it? The third wall, break the third wall. Is that what it's called? But I wanted Bombshell to tell you as you're listening to this, like the way that I see different seasons of life is like when you first buy a plant, it's in a smaller pot. And then it continues to grow and you have to replant it into a larger pot. And then it continues to grow. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like I better plant it in the ground, I mean, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay if you need to change pots. And as a leader, if you're losing something, because I'm sure, it was hard to lose you as well, but like you can wish. I mean, I've been so happy and supported people who've left me to move on because I want to see them grow in the new pot. Like I know that my pot is not big enough for them and
Hmm.
and that they deserve to grow into who they're capable of becoming in that bigger pot. So I just love how everything went with you and that it was a smooth transition and everybody's happy and
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
one big industry family.
And yes, and on that, just want to make sure, I wish nothing but the best for Condo World. And that's
Of course.
they not just Roy. I mean, the whole company has been amazing to me over the years, and we did amazing work. And the company is going to continue to go on and do amazing work. So I mean, they're in good hands and absolutely wish nothing but the best. But you sometimes 13 years is a long time, and I was ready for that next adventure. And that's just really about everybody has their own career journey, and you don't know until you get to that point that, yeah, like I need to push myself. I need to push myself out of my comfort zone. There's going to be a lot of pushing myself out of my comfort zone in a role like this. But I also feel like it's something that I've been called to do. I feel like there's a ton of purpose and fulfillment that will come with it, and hopefully just help a lot of people from the work that we're able to do as a group.
Yeah. So just, I guess I haven't even known you a year yet. It feels like I've known you
Yeah,
for
I
forever, but because
know.
if this all kicked off at VRMA last year,
It's
like
so
we didn't
crazy.
meet until, a few months after that, or I can't
Yeah.
remember exactly when, but
Yeah.
like I've watched you go. So, as we're talking about like the before and after, so you had no podcast announcing it to one of the top podcasts out there, recognized in the hospitality industry very well. Everybody knows, everybody loves it. And now you're hosting the red carpet event, the first red carpet event in the industry. And then you went from, a more locally focused company to now you're going to a national company. And then no podcast, no podcast to podcast, local to national. Um, and yeah, and I guess just kind of the VRMA thing too is another side of that. And then you kind of wrap this all up this past week with, and let me do a speaking engagement talking
Yeah.
about that journey. So let's talk about that,
Yeah.
because I mean, you've hosted panels, like I've been there, I've sat in the audience to watch you. Um, but this was like all eyes on you. So what did that feel like, especially as
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
changing in your life so dramatically?
It's like sometimes I wonder, just it seems unreal, but like I was asked, this is the first ever women's conference that the Myrtle Beach Chamber has put on, and I'm chair of the board of directors, and this was something that I really wanted us to do as a key initiative for this year, was to do a women's conference. That would be something that would continue as an annual thing, and that's what we did. And 100% credit to the chamber staff to put this together. They did such an amazing job for the first ever. I mean, you would think this was like our 10th. It was so good. And not because of me, because of them, and not because of me speaking, but I mean, the keynotes that we had were unbelievable. But was asked back in May to present about personal branding. And again, as our saying goes, commit first, figure it out later. I said, sure, sure, sure. I've got like 6 months. I'll figure it out by then. And just knowing in my head, it's going to come up faster than you think. Like, you need to start thinking about this. And then as it got closer, when I, kind of not knowing what was going on with my work situation, I thought, well, I think I need to wait until I know what's exactly going on, who I'm working for, before I can write this presentation, because it was about how personal branding grows the visibility of you and your career, but also your employers, and how companies that have a visible expert, the benefit that gives to the company's brand, how it helps them drive more sales, get better deals, grow everything. And that has 100% been what my personal brand has helped Condo World to do. So I've got a great story to tell, but I didn't know how to position all of it. So waited and started on it this past Monday, and just really struggled at first. That I just left Condo World on Friday, just accepted the job offer on Friday. Also won the VRMA election, found that out on Friday. So
Yeah.
it's like closing a door to something that meant the world to me for so long, opening two new doors, and so grateful about those. But now having to reflect on all of it really quickly, when it's like I needed a good couple weeks to be able to think about that
Let it
before I could
simmer.
put pen to paper. It's like you have to have time to think it through. So I stumbled for a while, and then like once I got it going, it just started free flowing. And I think it's still going to take me some time to really process all of this change, but it was very much an inflection point yesterday to present that, and present it in front of a room full of people that I've done business with for those full 13 years, that many of those are Condo World's resort partners in Myrtle Beach, that were I brought on through a program that I developed for the company, that I'm so proud of. And I've loved all those people for many years, and so for them to sit there and watch all of it, it was a lot. But it also made me feel very proud to have them there. But it's just reflection, I think, and being able to find meaning in why things happen and the timing of them, and just like being mindful of that is super important. And the VRMA thing, winning the VRMA board of election too, all of this brings us full circle, that like becoming chamber chair last year was a huge thing, and then winning this is another level of something that this was also pushing out of my comfort zone, that I was not technically LDC recommended, which that's the VRMA selection committee, because of demographically, the company I represented at the time was South Carolina, and the majority of the board is North and South Carolina. Well, I still won anyways. And now that's not even a concern because the company I represent is international. And that's actually nothing on this coast yet. They're West Coast and heavily into Mexico. So all these things come full circle and they all just happen in the strangest time. But one thing I do know that Annie and I've learned through doing the podcast, and this is part of our intro and our song in the podcast, is that it's about connecting the dots. And you can't, it's a Steve Jobs quote that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And just knowing when you're in the dots, when you're in the moment, you just have to have faith in something. I mean, put it in God's hands, put it out to the universe, whatever it is that you believe in, you have to believe that the dots are going to connect, and good things happen and bad things happen, but they've all happened in the right alignment to get you where you need to be. And so just aligning yourself and your mentality to receive those things, so that all these blessings now that Annie and I have prospered from with the podcast, these new opportunities, we are so in the right mind space to be able to appreciate those. Mm-hmm. So it has literally been a journey.
One thing that I say over and over again is things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So just trust it. Just trust that if you're in alignment with yourself, if you know what it is that you're about and what it is that your heart desires, like things might not make sense in the moment, but as they unfold, like you said, looking back, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, and we all had those moments. Yeah. But we still get in a tizzy, right? Of like anxiety and I mean, just worry and all that kind of stuff. And I think what I love about your story from, like, I remember the VRMA board too. And you told me that you weren't like recommended or whatever. I'm like, whatever, you're still going to win. It's like, whatever. And so everybody says that. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I've never been through this process. But and like, who works harder than you? Seriously. But it was scary. It's like, okay, if I'm not recommended and I don't win, I wouldn't want to run again necessarily. So it's like, am I kind of shooting myself in the foot by this? Should I just pull out now so that I could run again in the future? But I'm so glad. And I have to give, another mentor that I have full credit for telling me, keep your hat in the ring. I know you have a good chance and please stay in there. And I said, okay, if you think so, just going to go with it. Yeah. But you're like, first you're screw it, just do it attitude. Like, yeah, I am scared and I'm going to do it anyways. Like that attitude. Yeah. Fear is a green light that means go and go faster. Right? Like, you gotta, when you see fear, go, keep going. And like, that was like literally just a few days ago, you and I were talking that I was telling you how hard this presentation was going to be for me, that I didn't know if I wanted to do it, but and I had to remind myself, like, stop, you know what you tell yourself on a daily basis. And this is not you right now. Like, this is very emotional, like processing everything that's happened to you, but like, you need to be regular you right now and just say, I'm going to continue to commit. I will figure it out. Yeah. But, and people too, like we've already talked about Annie. I mean, your husband is relentlessly supportive of you. You've had a great mentor. Yeah. I mean, even when you said Amy High Note, like if that puts you in like the mix of Casago, like, I mean, gosh, Amy, it was so weird that she's not on the podcast this week. She's got so much going on after losing her mom, but I credit Amy High Note with so much, and what an extraordinary friend and support person. And I mean, like I can only imagine how people in the industry have things like that, where Amy made something happen for them as well, whether she meant to or not. Yeah. Like she's a well, I mean, she didn't mean to with me and Casago, but that you're right. That, I mean, 100%, she can be credited with where I'm at right now for this new career, because otherwise I might have met them at some point, but I've gone all these years and had never even heard of Casago. The East Coast doesn't know them. So like that's just, but it's putting yourself out there. Yeah. Because if you didn't put yourself out there, would the chamber have asked you to speak? Would Amy ask you to be on the panel? Like, would you be doing the red carpet? Like, no, because nobody would know you, because you decided to be scared instead of like feeling the fear and doing it anyways. Yeah. So that's, I mean, if there's like one big bow to put on a package for you, Alex, this is like, just put yourself out there. Figure it out. And that's my presentation yesterday in front of this women's group. That's exactly what it's about, was just make yourself visible. That was the main message. I have 4 main takeaways after sharing my story, but the core of that was make yourself visible.
And Roy told me that from the early days before I even worked for Condo World. He was a client of mine at an agency, and he saw the struggles I had working for this agency where I wasn't able to sell anything. And this was during the recession, and I didn't know anybody here. I just moved here. And he said, he was like, the main problem you have is obscurity. Nobody knows you yet. So you need to be out there. You need to make yourself visible. People, once they get to know you and they know of you, they're going to want to know what it is that you're selling, and they're going to believe in it because they'll end up believing in you.
That's right.
And that just resonated with me so much. And it's like, that's what we did at Condo World for all those years. And it was really, it just meant a lot yesterday to share that to that group of like, that's just putting yourself out there. You have to do it. And it is scary and vulnerable, but when you do that, the rewards come back so much, and you'll understand that having to put yourself through that little bit of misery and uneasiness is so worth it in the end.
And I should say,
yeah.
when you put yourself out there and you move through that discomfort, you give other people permission to do the same.
Absolutely.
It's so much more than being about you.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. And that, to me, yesterday, hearing people come up and say, like, wow, I never thought about things this way, or that inspired me. You get this because when you do this all the time, these presentations and keynotes and stuff, it's like, gosh, that is such an amazing feeling to have somebody be affected by it that way, and like to know that I feel like I'm saying a story that I'm like, I hope that they're interested in this. And they come up and say that they were so inspired by it. Like, gosh, that just gives purpose to all the struggle that I've been through, all the amazingness I've been through too. But like, to be able to have somebody else feel that way after listening is an amazing gift. And I know you have thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people that could say that about you because you are so visible in what you do. So I can see why you enjoy doing what you do, right? A lot of
hard. And I will say, like,
yeah.
It's not always fun, like leaving my, dual adjustable Tempur-Pedic cool top mattress in my bed and like my giant TV with my Netflix already in there and my Cavapoo puppy. And it's not fun sitting in an airport when you have been canceled. Like one time we came back to the gate 3 times, and the third time we had to deplane. And then it was like, I hope I get to leave. That's nothing about that is sexy, but what is amazing is when I come off the stage and that happens.
Absolutely. It's like that just
one person gets it.
And when people say that to you, I know in my case yesterday, because I'm not used to having somebody say that, I've never presented about that topic before. It immediately, I'm like, I don't even know how to respond to this. Like, it hit me so much that I'm like, I wish I had a better response for you right now, besides just saying, thank you. Like, I'm so happy that you came. Like, you just have to just express gratitude, but I know I'll learn more of that from you because I've learned a lot from you. And I think that's going to be part of this too.
Well, my only response to that would be like, awesome, now go do something with it. Like,
right. Yeah.
Telling me that now, get out there and do something with it. Like, don't leave it in this room.
Definitely not. Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Well, I feel like I probably already got the answer to what you would have said, but I'm going to push you one more time since you're so comfortable being pushed these days. I want to know, before we get into all the different ways that people can find you online, what is that parting piece of advice that you would give to a bombshell, a bold, brave, unwaveringly confident woman in business?
Somebody asked me that in the session yesterday, and it was a mother who had a daughter that was 21 and 25, I think. And she said, for them being in business or getting into business, what would you say? And it's the same thing I would say to people that age, my age, older, any age. Be your authentic self, and the right people will show up.
That's right.
And know that you don't have to be perfect. People actually like people that aren't perfect. And I think that's why podcasting is a fun thing for us, is that we don't edit everything out. It is an organic conversation, just as yours is too. And I think that's why we're very much drawn to the content you put out. But be your authentic self, just whether you don't have to have a podcast, but just in how you be you when you show up in your own skin, and know that people will respect that. And you don't need to pretend that you're something different. Just you'll find the right people. And I think that, that's obviously something that comes with time, of like just self-reflection too. I had somebody at the conference yesterday that said, everybody, if you're in your 50s, raise your hand. And the women that raised their hand, she said, how much differently do you feel about yourself now than you did. I'm 30, I'm 37. So like, how did you feel differently in your 40s or your 30s? And she said, for any of you that are still in that point, what you realize in your 50s is the things that you thought mattered, they don't. And like the things that you were worried about, they don't matter. And it's not that you start caring less over time, but you just start realizing what's truly important and what is just worth not even worrying about. And just focus on very clear path of who you want to be, who you want to impact, and just being yourself on who you want to be. So authentic, being authentic.
I love it. That's so perfect. I don't know if that's what Annie said or not, but I feel like
she probably did. I didn't want to steal her answer, but I couldn't say that. It's the truth.
I mean, you're freaking frack, so
exactly. I know. We finish each other's sentences. It's kind of crazy.
Okay. So definitely I beat this drum every single week, but find Alex on LinkedIn. We're business women. Let's go where business is done. I mean, I'm not saying you can't have your cat memes and your TikToks and all that kind of stuff, but like go interact in a business environment. Find Alex on LinkedIn. We'll put that in the show notes. And then Casago's website.
Casago.com, Casago.
Yeah, Casa like the house, and then go.
Casa like the house,
I've been saying Casago. I was just making up my own word.
Right.
And then you're on Instagram is Alex and Annie.
Alex and Annie podcast. Well, our website is alexandanniepodcast.com. And actually, if you go to that, that's probably the easiest.
Yeah.
And that connects you to any of our social, every different podcast network you can imagine. Videos. We do everything on video, just like Amber does too, video and audio. So
yeah, awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being on the show, for opening yourself up and like really, vulnerably telling your story and sharing your past year, and especially for being a great friend to me. And I just appreciate you.
The pleasure is all mine. The pleasure is all mine for sure. And thank you so much for what you've done for us and for our industry. I mean, my gosh, you mentioned Amy High Note. I think that's kind of how you got, and you were in hospitality for many years, but you got your foot wet into vacation rentals, and now you've got your whole leg and your body and you're about up to your eyes. Now you can't get out. So I
don't want to get out.
I like an out.
I don't want to get out. I'm all in now. So I won't leave the people. There's no way. That's just such a great industry.
And we won't let you either.
Good.
What a blessing for us to have you in our industry and have somebody of your caliber that knows branding, employer branding, personal branding, all these different things that it comes full circle, that we're trying to establish ourselves as an industry with an identity. And I think there's nobody else that could be better to help with that than you. So it's all good timing, right? It all ends up for the right reasons. So
I believe in timing.
Very grateful.
For sure. Well, Bombshell, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As you're listening to this, we're actually in Las Vegas together. So pay attention to social media, because I'm sure there'll be more hand-on-hip pictures from the AHQ.
Always.
Depending on who's in the middle. And
right, exactly.
Yeah. And so just follow along. It'll be great fun. And make sure that you leave a rating and review. Also subscribe to Alex and Annie's podcast, because there's so much information that comes out of that. Even if you're not in the vacation rental industry, I think you'll learn a lot from them and be inspired as well. And if you happen to watch this on YouTube, I know we don't push that a ton, but give it a like, share it with somebody that needs to hear Alex's story of like, I'm just going to put myself out there and see what happens. And like, boom, life gets bigger. So I always appreciate you spending your very limited and valuable time with me and my guests. And I will see you on the next episode.